They haven't texted. They haven't called. Months of silence, and yet something inside you knows this isn't over. What if that silence isn't rejection, but a reset? Your imagination is the only reality that matters. Right now, somewhere in this universe, your specific person is being moved by a force they can't explain. And that force is you. Stay with me, because after this, everything changes. I want you to stop for a moment. Just stop. Because I know what that silence feels like. I know how it sits on your chest at 2 a.m. when your phone is right next to you. Fully charged, perfectly working, and still nothing. No text, no call, no sign. Just that unbearable, crushing quiet that makes you question everything. Yourself, your worth, your love, the whole story. But listen to me very carefully right now. That silence is not their answer. That silence is not the truth. That silence is nothing more than the gap. The empty space between who they are in your imagination and who they are currently expressing in the outer world. And here is what most people will never understand. The outer world does not create your reality. Your reality creates the outer world. Think about it. What is this person to you right now, in this very moment, in your mind? Are they distant? Are they cold? Are they someone who left? Someone who moved on? Because whatever you have decided, they are in the palace of your own mind. That is exactly what they will keep performing for you on the stage of your life. You see, most people make the fatal mistake of reading the silence and then believing it. They let 3 days of no contact become their gospel. They let 2 weeks of quiet become their confession of defeat. They say, "See, I knew it, they don't care. It's over." And the moment they accept that as truth, they lock that very experience into place. But I tell you, assumption is the architect of every experience you have ever lived. Not fate, not luck, not even the other person's free will. Your assumption, the moment you assumed they were gone, they became gone. The moment you assumed they were cold, they became cold. You didn't see it happening because the shift was invisible, internal, silent itself. But it happened. It always happens. The world has no choice but to bend to what you have accepted as true within yourself. So now I want you to ask yourself something honest, something brave. What have you been assuming about them? Not what you wish, not what you pray for at night, but what you have truly, deeply, quietly accepted in that private conversation you have with yourself when no one is watching. That is your real assumption. And that assumption right now is writing their next move. Here is the most powerful thing I can tell you. That person who has gone silent, they are not separate from you. They exist within your consciousness. Their thoughts, their feelings, their impulses, all of it moves and breathes inside the infinite intelligence that you are. And when you shift what you accept as true, when you stop reading their silence as rejection and start seeing it as simply a delay between your new assumption and its physical expression, something extraordinary begins to happen. The gap starts to close, not because you chased, not because you begged, not because you sent the perfect message at the perfect time, but because you changed the only thing that was ever in your control, what you accepted as true inside your own mind. Their silence was never their final word. It was simply waiting, patiently, quietly, for you to speak first from within. When you plant that new assumption like a seed in the deepest soil of your consciousness, you begin to realize something that will change the way you see this entire situation forever. That person you are thinking about right now, they do not primarily exist out there. They exist in here, inside you, inside the version of them you have built brick by brick through every thought, every memory, every feeling you have ever attached to their name. Let me make this real for you. Close your eyes for a moment and think of them. Go on. Think of their face, their voice, the way they laugh, the way they say your name. You can feel them, can't you? You can almost hear them. That feeling, that alive, breathing, warm presence you just experienced. That was not a memory. That was not imagination running wild. That was them, the real them. The version of them that exists permanently inside your awareness. And here is the truth that will set you free. The person sitting somewhere in the physical world right now, on their couch, in their car, living their day, they are simply a projection, a shadow cast by the image you hold within. The outer person, the one who is silent, the one who has not called, they are the echo. And you are the voice. You do not chase an echo. You change the voice. Most people spend weeks, months, sometimes years trying to fix the echo. They rearrange themselves for the echo. They beg the echo. They analyze the echo. Why did it sound like that? What did it mean? Is it fading? Is it gone? And all the while, the voice, their own inner world, their own assumption, their own deeply held image of this person in this relationship remains untouched, unchanged, still broadcasting the same old painful frequency. And the echo has no choice but to repeat it. This is not theory. This is the mechanics of reality itself. Every person in your life, every single one, is responding to the version of them you have accepted in your mind. Your friend who is always there for you. You have always known them as reliable, haven't you? Your colleague who irritates you. You decided that early, and they have played the role faithfully ever since. This is not coincidence. This is consciousness at work. And your specific person is no different. The version of them that went silent, that version was born somewhere. It was born the moment you began to accept their silence as who they are. It was born in the hours you spent convincing yourself they had moved on, that they were unbothered, that they were living perfectly fine without you. You built that version carefully, painfully, without even knowing you were the architect. But here is the beautiful, staggering truth. If you built that version, you can build another. You can begin today, not tomorrow, not when things feel better. Today, hold a completely different version of them in your mind. A version that loves you, a version that thinks of you, a version that picks up their phone, scrolls past everything else, and feels something pull them, unexplainably, irresistibly, back to you. That version is not fantasy. That version is the seed of tomorrow's reality, because the outer world, with all its silence, all its distance, all its uncertainty, is nothing more than yesterday's inner world made visible. And your inner world is changing right now. And as your inner world shifts, as you begin to deliberately choose the version of them you hold in your mind, something else begins to happen. Something you did not expect. Something almost effortless. You stop reacting. Not because you stopped caring. Not because you forced yourself into some cold, detached state of pretending. But because when you truly understand that their silence is just an echo of an old assumption, and that you are already in the process of changing it from within, the silence simply loses its power over you. It stops feeling like a verdict. It stops feeling like a wound. It becomes just noise, background noise. And you become something else entirely. You become still. And stillness, I tell you, is the most magnetic force in this universe. Think about it for a moment. Think about the people in your life who have that quality. That unshakable, grounded, quiet confidence. The ones who do not chase. The ones who do not panic. The ones who seem to need nothing from anyone, not because they are cold, but because they are so deeply full within themselves. What do you feel around those people? You feel drawn to them, don't you? Almost without reason, almost against your own logic. Something in you just moves toward them. That is not personality. That is not good looks or clever words. That is the energy of someone who has stopped leaking their power into the outside world. And right now, in this situation, every time you pick up your phone to check if they texted, every time you replay that last conversation looking for clues, every time your mood rises and falls based on whether they are active on social media, you are leaking. You are sending out the frequency of someone who needs the echo to change before they can feel whole. And the echo, faithful as ever, reflects that need right back at you. Silence. Deeper silence. But the very moment, you decide that your peace does not live in their response. The moment you wake up and your first thought is not about what they did or did not do. The moment you go through your day full, present, unshaken, something shifts in the invisible world between you and them. They feel it. I know that sounds strange. I know the logical mind wants to argue, how can they feel something I did not say? How can silence on my end communicate anything to them? But you already know, from everything we have spoken about, that this connection does not travel through text messages. It does not depend on physical proximity. It moves through consciousness. And consciousness has no distance. When you were anxious, they felt resistance, even without knowing why. When you were desperate, something in them pulled back, even without a single word exchanged. And when you become still, truly, genuinely still, they will feel that too. that pull, that shift, that inexplicable, undeniable sense that something about you is different now. And different is magnetic. The person who once felt comfortable in the silence, comfortable because your energy was chasing, was aching, was loud even in its quietness, will suddenly find that silence uncomfortable. Because the dynamic has changed. Because you have changed. Not your appearance, not your circumstances, but the energy you are broadcasting from the deepest part of who you are. You stopped needing the echo to validate you, and now the echo is desperate to find you. And that desperation in the echo, that invisible shift in the dynamic, it begins the moment you take one more step inward. One more deliberate, powerful step into the only place where real change has ever lived, your memory. Now I know what you are thinking. The past is the past. It is done. It is sealed. You cannot change what happened. And on the surface level, yes, the calendar date of that argument, that cold goodbye, that last message that went unanswered, those dates are fixed. But here's what most people do not understand about memory. Memory is not a recording. It is not a locked vault sitting somewhere in your mind playing the same footage on a loop. Memory is alive. It is fluid. It is something you are actively, continuously recreating every single time you visit it. And right now, you have been revisiting it the wrong way. Every time you replay that last conversation and feel the sting of it. Every time you remember how they looked when they walked away and let that image settle into your chest like a stone. Every time you think about the silence and attach the meaning of rejection to it, you are not remembering the past. You are creating it fresh. You are giving it new life, new power, new authority over your present moment. You are rewriting it, just in the wrong direction. So now I want you to consciously, deliberately choose the other direction. This is the art of revision, and it is one of the most powerful tools your mind possesses. Go back to that memory, the painful one, the argument, the silence, the moment that broke something in you. Go back to it, but this time, do not watch it the way it happened. Rewrite it. See it ending differently. See them turning around and coming back. See the conversation softening, warming, resolving in love. See their eyes, not cold, not distant, but full. Full of everything you have always wanted to see there. Feel it. Do not just picture it like a movie you are watching from the outside. Step inside it. Feel the relief of it. Feel the warmth of that different ending spreading through your chest. Feel what it feels like when that specific memory no longer carries pain, when it carries peace instead. That feeling is not pretend. That feeling is instruction. You are literally sending new data into the same moment. And because your subconscious mind does not distinguish between what is vividly imagined and what is physically lived, it accepts this revision as real, as true, as the version that happened. And when the memory changes, the assumption built on that memory changes with it. Remember what we established. Your assumption is the architect. The echo follows the voice. So when you revise the painful memories, when you strip them of their sting one by one and replace them with the feeling of love, of resolution, of connection, you are dismantling the very foundation that the current silence was built upon. You are not lying to yourself. You are not in denial. You are doing something far more sophisticated than that. You are exercising the most extraordinary power a human being possesses. The power to choose which version of the past gets to inform your future. Because the painful version was never the only version. It was simply the one you kept returning to. And every time you returned, you built another brick in the wall between you and them. Now you are taking those bricks down, one memory, one revision, one feeling at a time. And as those walls come down, as the revised memories settle into your consciousness like fresh soil, soft and open and ready, there comes a moment each day that most people completely waste. A moment so powerful, so deeply connected to the mechanics of how reality is actually built, that if you learn to use it deliberately, everything you have been working toward in your waking hours becomes permanently sealed. That moment is the threshold between waking and sleep. Every single night, without exception, you pass through a doorway. Your body grows heavy. Your thoughts begin to slow. The noise of the day, the checking, the analyzing, the hoping, the doubting, all of it starts to dissolve. And for a few brief, precious minutes, you exist in a state that is neither fully awake nor fully asleep. A deeply relaxed, beautifully receptive state, where the walls between your conscious mind and your deeper subconscious mind become almost invisible. This is the most fertile ground your mind will ever offer you. And most people fall into it thinking about everything that went wrong today. They replay the silence. They rehearse the worry. They drift off carrying the full weight of the echo, and then wonder why they wake up feeling the same, why nothing seems to shift, why the days keep repeating themselves in that same painful pattern. It is because the last thing impressed upon that deeply receptive state becomes the blueprint the subconscious works with through the entire night. You handed an instruction before you sleep. You have just been handing it the wrong one. So tonight, and every night from this moment forward, I want you to do something different. As you feel that beautiful heaviness begin to settle into your body, as your thoughts start to soften and slow, I want you to bring them into your awareness, your specific person, not the distant version, not the silent version, the version you have been building from within, the one who loves you, who thinks of you, who feels that inexplicable pull towards you that they cannot explain or resist. Now construct a small, simple scene. Just one moment. One single exchange that implies everything you desire has already happened. Perhaps they are texting you and you can feel the warmth of reading their words. Perhaps you hear their voice saying your name the way it used to. Warm, close, real. Perhaps you simply feel their hand in yours, the easy, comfortable silence of two people who have found their way back to each other. Keep it simple. Keep it feeling-based. Do not build a complex story. Build a feeling. A genuine, warm, satisfied feeling of it being done, of it being real, of it being yours, and then let yourself drift. Do not force it. Do not grip it tightly like something you are afraid to lose. Carry it the way you would carry something precious and familiar, lightly, naturally, with complete confidence that it belongs to you. Because here is what happens while you sleep. That subconscious mind, the same infinite intelligence that runs your heartbeat without your instruction, that heals your body without your supervision, takes that feeling you gave it and works through the entire night to make it physically real. It begins rearranging circumstances, softening resistances, planting impressions in the consciousness of the very person you were imagining. Remember, there is no separation in consciousness. What you impress deeply enough in your own subconscious reaches theirs. You go to sleep with intention, and the universe goes to work. And while the universe works, while that deep, intelligent, tireless force inside you moves through the night, arranging what you cannot yet see, morning comes. And with morning comes the test. Not a dramatic test, not a moment of fire or thunder, just the quiet, ordinary, ruthless test of another day that looks exactly like yesterday. The phone still silent, the name still absent from your notifications, the outer world still stubbornly, maddeningly unchanged. And this is where most people fall, not because they lack desire, not because their imagination was weak, not because the process stopped working, but because they looked at the unchanged surface and decided it was evidence. They said, I have been doing this for days, for weeks, and nothing has moved. Maybe it is not working. Maybe it is not possible. Maybe I was foolish to believe. And in that moment of doubt, in that single quiet surrender, they cancel everything they built. This is the most critical thing I will say to you today. Are you listening? The gap between your assumption and its physical appearance is not failure. It is gestation. It is the invisible phase of every single thing that has ever been created. In nature, in science, in love, in life. The seed does not break through the soil the moment it is planted. The building does not rise the moment the foundation is laid. And your desire does not manifest the moment you first feel it as real. There is always, always, a period of silence between the cause and the effect. And that silence looks exactly like nothing is happening, but everything is happening. Beneath the surface that your physical eyes can see, an entire restructuring is taking place. Circumstances are being rearranged. Thoughts are being planted in minds you cannot access. Bridges are being built between where things are and where you have decided they will be. All of it invisible. All of it real, all of it moving. As long as you do not withdraw the assumption that set it in motion, think of it like this. You switched on a light in a dark room. The electricity moved the instant you pressed that switch. But if you press it and then immediately press it off again because the room did not light up fast enough, you will live forever in the dark. Persistence is simply keeping the switch on, holding your hand steady, not withdrawing the current. And here is the deeper truth beneath that. Every morning when you wake up, before the day gets loud, before the checking begins, before the mind starts its old familiar commentary, you have a choice. You can look at the outer world and let it tell you what is true, or you can look inward at the assumption you have chosen and let that be your truth. One of those choices builds, the other dismantles. The outer world will always lag behind the inner one, always. That is not a flaw in the process. That is the nature of how physical reality works. It is always, without exception, a delayed reflection of what has already been decided within. So when you see the delay, when the silence stretches another day, another week, do not read it as a no. Read it as not yet manifested. Read it as still becoming. Read it as the earth doing what earth does before the flower appears. Your only job, your single sacred responsibility in this entire process, is to remain faithful to the vision when the vision has not yet become visible, not blindly, not desperately, but with the calm, unshakable knowing of someone who has planted something real and knows without any doubt that it is already growing. And when that knowing becomes your natural state, when the faithfulness to your vision stops feeling like effort and starts feeling like simply who you are, something extraordinary happens in the outer world. Something that will make you smile, not with surprise, but with recognition. They reach out, not always dramatically, not always with a grand confession or a perfectly worded apology. Sometimes it is something small, a reaction to an old post, a voice note that starts with, "Hey, I was just thinking about you." A text that arrives at an ordinary Tuesday afternoon with no warning, no occasion, no logical reason. Just contact after all that silence. After all those days when the outer world gave you absolutely nothing to hold on to, there it is. And I want you to understand why this happens. Not just that it happens, but the exact reason, the precise mechanics behind it. Because when you understand the why, you will never again panic during the silence. You will never again mistake the quiet for the ending. Here is the truth. Detachment is not distance. Detachment is not pretending you do not care, or building walls, or training yourself to feel nothing. Real detachment, the kind that becomes magnetic, is what naturally emerges when you have done everything we have spoken about. When you have revised the painful memories. When you have planted the feeling in that sacred space before sleep. When you have held the assumption steady through the days that looked like nothing was moving. When you stopped reacting to the silence because you genuinely understood it was just a delay. At that point, you are not detached because you gave up. You are detached because you became full. And a full person does not chase. A full person does not monitor. A full person moves through their days with a quiet, unspoken completeness. And that completeness radiates outward in every direction without effort, without strategy, without performance. And your specific person feels it. Remember what we established at the very beginning of this conversation. There is no separation in consciousness. They exist within your awareness. And when your awareness shifts from lack to fullness, from waiting to having, from hoping to knowing, that shift travels. It reaches them in the only way real things ever reach anyone. Not through words, not through signals, not through engineered situations, but through the invisible, undeniable language of energy. Suddenly they find themselves thinking about you at odd hours, picking up their phone without knowing why, scrolling back through old memories, and feeling something they cannot name or explain. A pull, a warmth, a sense that something is unfinished, something is alive, something is calling them back toward you, with a quiet insistence they cannot argue with. And so they reach out, because what you have been building inside, that steady, loving, certain version of them in this connection, has finally broken through the surface. The gestation is complete. The seed you planted in revision, in your nightly practice, in your unwavering assumption, it has become visible, real. This is not magic. This is not luck. This is not coincidence dressed up in a pretty story. This is the most natural, logical outcome in the world when you understand how reality is actually constructed. From the inside out. Always from the inside out. You did not wait for them to change so you could feel better. You felt better, truly, deeply, genuinely better, and they changed because they had no other choice. Because the version of them you held in your consciousness with such certainty finally had to become the version standing in front of you. That is the power you have always had. You were simply never told how to use it. And now you know. Everything we have walked through today, every truth, every principle, every shift in perspective, it all points to one single undeniable realization. The power was never out there. It was never in their hands. It was never dependent on their timing, their mood, their decision, their silence, or their return. It was always, from the very first moment, inside you. You came into this with a silent phone and a heavy heart. You came in reading that silence as rejection, as finality, as proof that what you wanted was somehow beyond your reach. But now you see it differently. Now you understand that the silence was never their answer. It was simply the space between your old assumption and your new one. It was the gap. And you have just learned how to close it. You learned that they live in your mind first. That the outer world is nothing but an echo of what you have accepted within. You learned that your stillness is more powerful than any message you could ever send. That revision is not denial. It is the deliberate, courageous act of choosing which version of your story gets to move forward. You learn that the threshold of sleep is sacred ground, and that every night you carry your desire into that space, the universe works silently and faithfully on your behalf. You learn that the silence during gestation is not failure. It is the invisible machinery of manifestation doing exactly what it is supposed to do. And you learn that detachment is not giving up. It is the natural fullness of someone who has already claimed what is theirs. Every single one of those steps brought you here, to this moment, to this knowing. And that person, your specific person, the one who has been quiet, the one who has been distant, the one whose name still does the thing to your heart that it has always done. They are not gone. They were never gone. They exist right now in the most important place they have ever existed. In your imagination, in your assumption, in the vision you are now holding with steady, unshakable hands. The world has no choice but to reflect that back to you. Not someday, not maybe, not if you are lucky or worthy or deserving enough, but as the natural, inevitable, mechanical result of a cause that has already been set in motion inside you. So close this video not with longing, not with desperation, not with the anxious question of when. Close it with the quiet, powerful certainty of someone who has just remembered something they always knew but temporarily forgot. You are not waiting for love to come back. Love never left. It was living inside you the entire time, waiting not for them to return, but for you to finally, fully return to yourself. And now you have. Go live from that place. Go move through your days from that fullness. Go to